One day, three men were discussing what the first profession ever was. And the first one argued that it had to be a doctor because someone had to take the rib out of Adam in order to build up Eve. The second one said that that was pretty good, but that he thought that the first profession had to be an engineer. It's music to my ears. It had to be an engineer because of God creating the world, right? Putting everything into order and such a wonderful structure. The third one thought that that was pretty good too, but he said that the first career, the first profession had to be that of a politician. Because in the very beginning we hear that it was utter chaos. I was telling Deacon yesterday, I was walking in, I think this is the first time I've ever opened my homily with a joke. And I feel like it's okay to do it because I got that from the bishop yesterday at a mass for some deacon candidates. But it's a very fitting joke with the recent election cycle that we just went through. There's a lot of chaos. And one of the reasons why the election cycle is so feisty is because there is chaos all around us. There's a lot of unrest. People are incredibly worried, and they're very passionate about how we should go forward and try to deal with the chaos around us. The world is unsettled. People of one country, of one religion, of one political group don't get along with others because they're part of the other group. Right? They're those people. But this isn't a new problem. We hear in the first reading that David is anointed king of Israel. And Israel wanted a king because they were constantly encountering chaos. They wanted a king because they were constantly fighting off attacks from neighboring people. Chaos has been a factor from the beginning, right, since the very dawn of creation. And it doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. So what happened in the beginning after we hear about the chaos? We hear that the earth was a formless and dark place. But right after that, God got to work in setting order to that chaos. God brought forth form and structure into a formless world. He created order and stability. And this is why we celebrate today the solemnity of Christ, the King of the universe. Right? Not King of Lafayette, not King of America, not King of the world, King of the universe. King of everything that exists. And if God can bring order to the chaos, the formlessness that was around in the beginning, if he can bring the universe into existence out of nothing as we believe, then he can certainly order the chaos in our world and the chaos in our heart. When we allow God into our lives, he brings order. He brings stability. He brings peace. And he doesn't do this on a superficial level. He does it in the deepest sense of the words. Being at the cathedral, there are a lot of interesting, maybe even chaotic things that are happening all around me pretty much all the time. But if I wake up and spend time in the chapel, if I stay committed to prayer, if I stay committed to that life close to Christ, then I never lose that stability. I never lose that peace, no matter how chaotic life may get around me. So how did God order the chaos? He did it by creating. St. Paul in the second reading says that Christ is the firstborn of creation and that all things were created through and for him. In the Nicene Creed, we profess each week that we believe in one God, the creator of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. We go on to profess our belief that all things were made through Christ. And so God brought order to the world by creating, and he created through his word. He created through the second person of the Trinity. In the beginning, we hear that God said, "Let there be light," and it happened. Right? God's word is powerful. God's word carries out what he says. So God creates through his word. And in the fullness of time, God recreated us through his word made flesh. Through Christ, God brought order to a chaotic world. Again, not a superficial order. Everything doesn't look pretty around us, but there is an order and a structure and a peace that only Christ can bring. In the preface for today, we'll pray right before the Eucharistic prayer. For you anointed your only begotten Son as eternal priest and King of all creation, so that by offering himself on the altar of the cross, he might accomplish the mysteries of human redemption and make all created things subject to his rule. So God orders through creation, he creates through his word, and his word does that through the cross. A redemption order is won through the cross. That is how our chaotic world becomes ordered. And it's completely different from what we maybe want or what we see earthly kings doing. Right? Earthly kings have to have power. They have to grasp their power. They have to exert their power by force on their subjects. But Christ is completely different. Christ reigns from the cross. Christ reigns from this place of seeming weakness. Christ shows his power by being obedient to the will of God. Christ shows his power by humbly submitting to the will of the Father. And so we as followers of Christ, the King of the universe, have to imitate him. And following Christ means that ordering our lives is also going to come through suffering, through sacrifice, through adversity. And ultimately, it's going to come through death. Death to ourselves. Death to our egos, so that Christ can truly reign and be our King. So today we celebrate in the church this wonderful solemnity of Christ, the King of the universe. And as we do so, we recognize that there is chaos in the world around us. But when we recognize that, we don't worry, we don't get upset, because God creates order out of chaos. That is his specialty. Unlike earthly kings, Christ the King uses what seems to be weakness and failure to accomplish his work. Because Christ reigns not from some golden throne, but from the throne of the cross. And if we are to make him our King, then we have to recognize that we too are going to suffer. That we too have to pick up our cross and follow him. And in the midst of that suffering, we have to be like that good thief in the gospel. We have to suffer side by side with Christ. We have to call out to him, asking him to remember us now that he is in his kingdom. And if we do, he promises us that like that good thief, that we too can begin to experience the peace of the kingdom of truth and love, of justice. We can experience that here and now. We, with Christ as our King, we can have peace in our lives and in our hearts, no matter how much chaos may be happening around us. We know that this is true. We know that we can enjoy the kingdom of peace here and now, and we are able to believe in that promise because, as the church reminds us today, Christ is the King of the universe. Christ is the King of everything that exists, and he came to bring order into our lives.